So let's welcome Tim Exile, Richard Rauser, Jake Murphy, and Shane Kehoe.
Hi. Is this thing on, as they always say? It's like, can you see my screen? The equivalent of the Zoom. Anyway, this is not a comedy show. I think we're just going to do, I'm not the moderator, I just started speaking first.
Are you not the moderator?
Maybe I am now.
You look like a moderator. You look good for a moderator. Doesn't he look good for a moderator?
Hi everyone, I'm the moderator. I'm Tim Exile. I'm the founder of Endless, which is a collaborative music platform. Our mission is to transform music into something we do together rather than just a product we consume alone. So you make music at the speed of thought rather than spending months in the studio. And we kind of branched out into Web3 about a year ago, building out an NFT marketplace around the music that people create on the platform. So that's me.
Lovely, well done, Tim. For a moderator, you speak so well.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here. My name is Shane Kehoe, and I'm the managing partner of Swissborg Ventures. That's probably the most boring part of this whole fucking story, so let's keep it like that. Let's get lively. Really, I'm passionate to the core about music. And there really is only two types of music, good music and maybe not such good music. But it's unbelievable to see currently, with the aid of technology and what happened early on in the development of NFTs with art, but now what we're starting to see in music. And actually, it's not just music, but actually digital culture. So hopefully we'll get talking about some of these things. We've made some investments into the NFT space. We were investors alongside Crypto.com, Richie Houghton, Steve Aoki, and lots of different music projects that will include stuff like LimeWire music platforms. So anyway, it's a pleasure to be here with you today, and we should have a great conversation about music, NFTs, and where we're going.
Hi, everybody. My name is Richard Rauser. I'm a musician and an artist. I'm also the head of innovation at a music NFT company called Token Tracks. I've been deep into crypto since about 2013. I actually first bought a round of drinks in London, here in Shoreditch, back in 2014, back when transaction fees didn't make that impossible like we have the situation of today. More recently, I've gotten into NFTs. I've been following the space since 2017, but I had a lot of cynicism for it at first, as many of us had. And then in more recent years, I've opened up to it as I've seen what's been possible, particularly with on-chain NFT art. And then also, one of the things that's really turned me on to it is, of course, the collaborative opportunities that are enabled by NFTs. So really happy to be here.
I'm Jake. I'm a founder of Clockmaker and Apin Records. Clockmaker was like a creative agency I started about 5.5 years ago, originally in music, and then I sort of I think you meet certain people in life, and I became very obsessed with like building equity for other people, specifically outside the Western world. So I went down a track of anything from sitting on gender-based violence committees, looking at criminal justice reform, generation equities, and music has always been a passion. And I think like looking at various different things, I was not in crypto at all, was kind of rejected it for years and years and sort of managed to swerve it. And then I think through the process of, I've managed an artist for 4 years, went through working with labels, publishers, societies, and kind of looking at the economic models and was like, hang on, it doesn't quite stack up. So we decided to Google how to launch a token in March to help creators, literally Googled it on a Friday night. And we went to 21 million in 13 hours. And we paid out about 1.3 million to creators in a month, which was an interesting experience. But anything from like kids tuition in Jamaica to EDM courses for black females to supporting people going on tour, making EPs, etc. And I think through that dialogue, obviously cash was never the answer. But we've since then just continued to have conversations and now building products that I guess seek to build more equity for creators around the world. So yeah, come on.
As the de facto moderator. This panel is about music NFTs and the new collaboration economy. I think music is inherently collaborative, and I think the infrastructure of the legacy music industry has really diminished the collaborative nature of music. And I think, personally, I see the opportunity of NFTs, and Web3 is completely unlocking and unleashing that kind of latent value that is available to be tapped in music. Because it's permissionless, because we don't, we can cut out the middlemen. The network becomes a programmatic middleman, which is great because, for example, on Endless, somebody can create a piece of music in a couple of minutes, and a minute later, somebody's actually bought that as an NFT, and they have royalties in their wallet. If they created that music with other people, those royalties are automatically split and arrive into the other collaborators' wallets. So, the opportunity for a circular economy where everybody is both a creator and a collector is massive. But I'm curious to hear the rest of your take on that, and how can we better take this opportunity and manifest it?
Absolutely. I think we're all very much agreed and know where this is going. I mean, once you've seen the power of NFT, even from a royalty perspective, or all the different things a utility can have attached to that NFT, you can't unsee it. I think from my side is that, yes, I know it's going to happen. And when I'm looking to allocate capital into founders or projects, one of the biggest things that I'm looking at is that, yes, I know it's going to happen. I've got conviction on the space because I've done my work, but I don't know the timing aspect. So it's really nice to understand when or what are the signs that we're going to start to see from a timing perspective that we're going to get traction. Because what you've mentioned is a perfectly amazing case for each of artists to get paid right at that point of creation. But is that being used today at scale? And if not, what have we got to do to get there? And what are the indications from a timing perspective that make us know that we're just on that move? And we've seen it before, right? We've gone from vinyl to CD, mini discs, and then onto streaming. So, this is not something that won't happen. It will. It's just, is it a generational thing? Is it a timing thing? And what's going to be that thing that will kickstart it?
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think a lot of the things that you can do with Web3 are possible with Web2, particularly with collaboration, but it's just so much easier when you come into the Web3 sphere, and you can do it faster, and you can be remunerated for your work a lot easier, and I think that counts for an awful lot. The royalty splits that you talk about, if I were to collaborate with a musician without using blockchain and DLT, it could be months before I get paid, for my contribution. And then, if some piece of music or some element of a song that I, contributed were to be reused in another remix and then yet another remix, and the attribution just gets lost. And a lot of musicians that I work with, they really struggle with that. How do I maintain some sort of hold on something I contributed once upon a time, and it just gets kind of lost into the ether? And then if you can track it, on a blockchain and see the provenance and know who owns it and who should get what kind of credit, it makes it so much easier.
If you're getting paid in a month, that's pretty damn good. And I know guys that made records 10 years ago, they still haven't got paid.
Yeah, there we are, yeah.
And that is a problem, especially for small, struggling artists that are, and so I come at it from the electronic dance music scene, house, techno, and I understand that there is such creativity being made on a computer program in the privacy of your own bedroom, and these tracks can go worldwide, they can go global, but it's actually getting paid for them is a real problem.
First off, obviously, again, when we were supporting creators, I think sometimes we operate now and expect everybody to understand what the fuck this all means. And obviously, I wasn't the guy giving out crypto, but I had to ask everybody for their ETH address. And I had creators that were convinced they understood what Web3 was, and they were sending me their home address when I was asking for their ETH address. So, I think we've also got to be cognizant of the fact that I think it's 5% of the world hold crypto at the minute. You've got 88% of the world's youth live outside of the Western world. 2/3 of the world's youth have no access to a working internet connection. So we've got to be really careful, societally, that we don't jump into a load of technical words that basically just ostracize and exclude and basically serve the sort of crypto bro mentality, and it becomes this kind of cool thing over here. I also scarcity works for the select few. It doesn't work for everybody. So we've kind of got to find ways to use, ultimately the technology does help to solve some pretty archaic ways of managing metadata in the music industry. I mean, I think the guys talking before were talking about people not getting paid as songwriters. I mean, I can't exactly say what we're doing, but we've got two fundamental bits, and one of them was to basically try and build a sort of permission layer chain vault structure to start to verify, to lobby towards having a global music directory, because it doesn't exist. And we ran one track, which was from a French classical artist in France on Spotify alone. And we basically tried to log the discrepancies recorded between the master side and the publishing side. On one song, there was 194,000 stream difference that was reported between the master and publishing. And across the entire album, that was 12.8 million streams that did not exist. So not reported. We then went across Europe and verified, went through all the countries, and there was a minimum error rate of about 12%, up to Spain, but that was about 48% difference in recorded rates. So effectively, how we use tech to change some really fundamental issues of people getting paid without actually telling them that we're doing it with that tech, that's a good place to start. And then also starting to understand, the world of music has evolved. I think 88% of all revenue in the US now comes through streaming, which was never sort of the plan when that sort of came about. And so streaming, when it sort of originated, clearly the majors jumped in to get a nice dividend at the end of the year. Creators have no equity in that platform. Up for debate, discuss that another time. But the whole context of streaming is that streaming was classified as a sale or a download originally because it works in favor to ultimately pay greater on the master side. To reclassify that as a license, which already model exists, starts to change the relationship that the songwriter would have at the table to the publishing side and the master side. And so I think all these type of things, how we use technology to change things that are really sort of fundamental to music creators being able to create, that for me is a really good place to start before you then start to nuance on top.
Just on the streaming thing, never have I paid so little, got so much, but yet felt so lackingly poor.
Yeah.
And not engaged.
Right,
Yeah.
and you're right about your figures, 87%. When you look at the artist payout from something like a Spotify, you guys probably are aware, out of the 100% that's paid, Spotify or the centralized platforms take about 92 to 93% of that. How can artists, especially young, struggling artists, manage to build a career with that type of payout? It's absolutely crazy. But let's just look at it like this. Wow. There was a time when I would go to a record store, or my older brother would go to a record store, and he'd buy a record. And it was a physical thing. It had weight to it. And when you opened up the sleeve notes, it had a picture, or it had a giveaway, or a poster. And it was a tangible thing which you were buying, which was played from start to finish. It was an album. And it smelt, and it had weight, and there was feeling to it. And we've gone all the way now to pressing a button on our phone, and if you're streaming it on your phone and listening it through the shitty speaker on your phone, after it being mastered somewhere over in Motown, can you just believe just the crap, how you're hearing that music compared to what it was?
Well, this is very much the logical conclusion of the entire trajectory of the media industry, not just music, but everything. I mean, the media industry that has sprung up, music, film, everything, news media, over the last 150 years. The problem that evolved to solve was access to culture. 150 years ago, very few people had access to culture. So the name of that game was convenience. We had to make it convenient to access culture. And now, 150 years later, we have the opposite problem. We actually just I don't just want convenience, I want meaning. That's what culture is really about. But we're still trying to solve the problem of convenience, and we've overshot. That's why Spotify is meaningless. And I think this is another really great opportunity for Web3, because it allows people to Jake, we were talking earlier about, I'm not a fan of this term token gating. I think it's talking about the wrong side of the coin. What I think it's all about is relevance and meaning. It's just well, if I have this thing, it means that I'm associated with this thing. And yeah, maybe it opens up extra experiences that I can have, but it's about association. If you collect, I've collected probably almost 500 NFTs on Endless so far, and those are from very specific kind of creators in the ecosystem. And the sum total of my collection, like, it says something about me and it says something about them, and it links us in ways that you can never be linked, you can never be connected, you can never have that sense of meaning on something like Spotify, because it's a convenience platform.
Right, right. And I think you're absolutely right. Web3, collaboration is built into the culture. It's part of it. And it's not just musicians collaborating either. If you're a fan of the music, you buy an NFT, you're part of the success story of that musician. And what we're seeing the emergence of now are NFT technologies that allow the fans to contribute to the creation process. And I think that's a really powerful thing.
I totally agree. A lot of people are talking about the artists. Actually, the way that I look at this and how I really kind of quantify a potential investment into something is, what is it actually bringing to the fan? And that's really key, because my previous example is, okay, we got access to 1 million songs and we press play and we continue to shuffle. Great. That's not where it's going. I think we might have taken the convenience thing. I think the next generation growing up will not. It's all about being part of that club. It's all about having access to the club. It's all about being remunerated for good behavior. It's all about having royalty in what you believe in. And with NFTs and with Web3, you can be part owner within that. That is really, really empowering, because you have levels of fans, or levels of access, or levels of support, and you get remunerated for that, and you're able to show that. That now becomes a direct link between the artist and the fan, with no more bureaucracy in the middle. Is it going to happen overnight? Probably not.
Yeah.
And these fans are engaged, because if they get bored of you, if they grow out of you, they're just going to sell the NFT on it. It's got economic value.
So
there's a
firstly,
but. Okay, there's a but.
Spotify's dope. So like, Spotify needed to exist, first off, and also DSP's taking 30% to prop up themselves as a business. Like, they need to continue to do that, otherwise they wouldn't be a business. And what Spotify sold was, obviously everyone was downloading music illegally, so we wanted access to sound. And it was great. And I think I sat through a talk with LL Cool J, of all people, and he said, like, music industry when he was coming up versus now, very, very different. When he was coming through, if you weren't signed to a major label, you basically, no one heard your music. That was it. So it's very highly curated. That was your only channel, so the relationship was very clear. Whereas now, everybody makes music. So it's like jungle, desert, both clearly challenging, but require different methods to kind of extract themselves from it. When you talk about albums, like 100%, our relationship to music has become so much more passive. Like, we just become like further and further detached from music. It's kind of 100,000 songs uploaded to Spotify every day. There's more and more music. So it kind of becomes this thing where we cycle through, and we lose the idea, the notion of an album. And I think, like, beyond that, like, the relationship between an artist-fan has got to evolve using technologies like what you've spoken about, because it's got to become more reflective of where we're at. The artist needs the fan needs the artist. So in my head, like, a staking relationship, without calling it staking, some sort of thing where ultimately both parties are rewarded for being more engaged than just kind of passing through. And Spotify actually log that data, because they could report passive listeners numbers. There's like NDAs between labels and platforms. Again, we won't get to that because it's not long left. But like, so that should be paid out at a broadcasting rate, because Spotify is ultimately used as like a glorified radio. But for anyone that starts to like songs and add them to playlists and do all that sort of side of things, that already happens as people that are much more engaged with an artist. So I think reflecting it with some sort of like economic model that surrounds it, that everybody understands, without necessarily, again, using the words, I think that's where it evolves to, and so people can find a way that want to engage that music and then be rewarded for, I guess, taking more of an interest.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also around, bringing this way of thinking to scale, really. I think product design is another really important kind of vector in this, that I think I see it beginning to be talked about a bit more, but I still feel we need to talk about it more, because ultimately, that whole spiel that went on about, a convenience-based media industry, that what delivered that convenience-based media industry was great product design. And I think we really need to start thinking about, like, all the projects that we're working on. There's a tendency in Web3 to think about this very kind of the abstract economics and tokenomics, and like, yeah, we've got this great kind of payment-based layer that's fast and permissionless, and like whatever the throughput is of transactions per second, and like sizing that up against Visa, and like, isn't this great? Yes, I mean, that is great, but we really need to build amazing products around that, and a lot of that is front end. You know, a lot of the development stack that we're used to that we built Web 2 in is actually still very relevant to Web 3 and creating those experiences. And like I think that well, certainly for me, that's what we're really focusing on now, is like, how can we create, essentially, like what we're building on Web 3 is a peer-to-peer digital economy. That's already been built in the physical world. Like, you know, eBay did that, Etsy, Depop, you know, great platforms that have created peer-to-peer commerce. And that's very much what I see Web 3 as. It's that in the digital realm.
Where things get really exciting is where you might have different front ends into the same project, and perhaps the music or, you know, the stems are captured on the blockchain, but you can build, you know, different people from completely different parts of the world and different companies with different interests can build front ends on top of that allow you to interact with the underlying music in different ways.
Yeah, I'm very confident on the tech because there's far smarter people in here that will build that. And I trust with them. What I'm interested is to see, will it come from the bottoms up of the fan requesting this type of platform, or will it come from the artists who have now got up to speed with the technology and see a better way rather than going through the traditional labels and majors? Will it see a better way to spin up something or join a platform or a program where they get treated more fairly and ultimately the fan gets treated more fairly? I'll be interested to see where that push and pull comes from.
Well, sorry.
Mate, you go.
One quick. I think what's really important is basically dissolving the fan-artist divide. And I think the platforms that are really going to win, everybody's going to be a creator and a collector, and it's going to be this kind of interdependent, like, intertwined relationships. Anyway, sorry, I'm hogging the mic.
It's blessed. I think just relationships need to evolve. Like, labels are cool. Like people need labels. Like certain things. You look at Stormzy now doing like dope shit. Like you need the backing to be able to do some of that. Like, and it's just understanding that. It's like, take label contracts, right? So a lot of artists, why we didn't try and get artists to sign up to Web3 contracts is because they finally developed some sort of financial literacy not to sign a shit record deal. The last thing I wanted to do is sign up to something that we weren't completely sure of. It's like when we've got to change the nature of good business signing an artist when they're really young to terms that are very, very heavily in favor of ultimately the risk taker, which is the investor. They need to be able to have intelligence built into them using this sort of technology so it can evolve as their relationship evolves. The last thing somebody wants to do is to sign up to an 80-20 or they're still trying to recoup based on that 20% that they're getting, even though they're selling out arenas by that time. That just needs to evolve, and so therefore the relationship becomes more balanced. And I think if this idea of equity again, I think if everybody can take that approach with stuff that already exists, it will kind of just be kind of these like marginal gains that everybody will start to feel pretty chilled again without needing to be this like revolutionary thing that changes everything else.
We've got 1 minute left. Quick final whip round. Thoughts?
No, go on. No, please, no, go on.
I was just going to I was wondering if what you said earlier about creators and collectors, you know, being one and the same, is that really going to scale? You know, I mean, that's great for small projects, but
Well, from the perspective of like optimizing for meaning rather than convenience, absolutely, because you know, meaning, creating meaning, being part of meaning involves being enfranchised in a creative process. So I think that ultimately, absolutely, that is going to scale, I believe.
cool.
Yeah, I think I was just kind of going to wrap it up from my side. In the immortal words, let's face the music and dance. And I think if we continue to dance, we continue to be on the vibe, we continue to create new music, we continue to figure out the UX, the UI, the timing aspect. And I think, yeah, let's let the music play.
Cool.
Awesome. I see Peter appearing. Yeah, well, so quick, like, so yeah, I'm Tim Exile, founder of Endless. We're building a platform for real-time collaborative music creation, collection. Would love to pick up any conversations with any of you after this.
Yeah, Shane Kehoe from Swissborg Ventures. You can find me on Twitter, Shane Crypto VC. And if anybody is looking at really interesting ideas, projects, or missions within the Web3 space, please give us a shout. I'd love to see if I could be helpful in any way.
Richard Rauser, Head of Innovation at Token Tracks. We help musicians onboard to Web3. Happy to chat with anyone about that.
Jake Murphy from Clockmaker and Apron Records. All I'm doing really is kind of helping music creators build equity. And so if we can act as the guardrails before they make irrational choices or even help kind of build a better economic environment for them, then that's what we want to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great panel, guys.